Welcome back to the Radio Horror YouTube channel. This time we're talking about another anniversary of a beloved film. This time it's the 40th anniversary, yes, we're all very old, of Friday the 13th Part 2, which is a classic unto itself. And Katie, the blonde in front of here, is to talk to us about this amazing slasher classic.
Hey there, creeps. Yes, Katie. I am Katie, the blonde in front of here, and I'm going to talk to you about Friday the 13th Part 2, which turned 40 screams young on April 30th of 2021. That's right. It came out on April 30th, 1981. I'm guessing a number of you were not even alive then, depending on the age of the listeners of Radio Horror. But yeah, 1981. And let me tell you, it actually stands up to the test of time. Directed by Steve Miner and written by Ron Kurz and Victor Miller. It stars Amy Steele, John Fury, Kirsten Baker, and Russell Todd, with some performances from the classics from the first film. Betsy Palmer as Mrs. Voorhees, Adrienne King as Alice, and Crazy Ralph himself, Walt Gorney. Part 2 is supposed to pick up 2 months right after the first film. Alice, the lone survivor, is just trying to get her life back together, watching some hidden things with Crystal Lake Memories that I found on Shudder. Everything that Adrienne King said in Part 2 was ad-lib. She basically didn't have a script. She just got on a phone, started talking some stuff, and that was it. There's a little bit of, there's sort of some different stories on why she didn't have a bigger role in Part 2. One that I saw was because of financial, like her agent wanted her to get more money, which, Friday the 13th was a pretty successful film, and she's the familiar face in it, since no one else really in the film should be in it. The other is because she had a stalker in real life and decided to step out of the spotlight life, which is horrible. Either way, Alice meets her demise very early on, and it's one of the crazy things about Friday the 13th Part 2. Now, the body count is like double. Instead of like 6 counselors that were in, I believe, the first one, there's like 12 or 14. A number of them, you don't even get their names. It's also one of the most diverse bunch of counselors that you see in the sequel and in any of the films. But again, most of these people don't even have lines. And then they also conveniently, not conveniently, but is very lucky for them, they go into town and then they also don't die at the camp. So good for them that the people who decide to drink and party end up surviving in this film. This one, it came out in 1981. This one actually breaks most of the stereotypes of horror films and especially of sequels. One being the survivor, or the final girl, Jenny, played by Amy Steele. Watching this film, to prepare for this review, it's very interesting because she's basically profiling what Jason's mindset would be like. Now, that may not sound like it's a big deal, but no one knew what profiling was in 81. I mean, not like in layman's terms, like people do now. I mean, that was still a very new concept to Quantico and the FBI. Yet she's going through like what his mindset would be like, what he had done, how he would have lived, like all this stuff. That's profiling a killer. And that was something that it's like, seeing it now, it's like, damn, they were really ahead of themselves. The other thing is that Jenny takes that knowledge even when she's being stalked by the guy. She finds all these dead bodies. She's able to compose herself, figure out what to do, and it, basically saves her life. But the third thing that I find the most interesting is that Jenny gets some. Like most final girls, most survivors in films, they are the Vestal virgins. They don't kiss, they don't do anything like that. That's one of the things. She gets some from, the main camp counselor Paul. And again, freaking Friday 13th Part 2 was ahead of the game. Some of the things, though, in Friday 13th Part 2 make absolutely no sense whatsoever. The main thing being that why the hell is Jason alive? Because if the reason why Friday the 13th happened, Mrs. Voorhees was killing everyone because they were thinking about opening up this camp where her son died, then what the hell was the point of her killing everyone if her son died than if her son didn't die? And the fact that, I mean, in the end of Friday the 13th, you know, Alice gets pulled under by apparently the dead body of a 10 or 13-year-old boy that drowned in the lake. He's apparently 30 or close to 40 something by now, because it takes place in, well, it came out in 1981, but since it's supposed to take place 5 years from the original film, it's supposed to be like 1984 now. So what's he been doing for 5 years? And what was he doing? Like, did Mrs. Voorhees not know he was alive? Did she just like lose it? There's so many things that don't make sense with that regarding that.
Whoa! You pull that string, the whole house of cards starts falling down. Let's not put logic to these films.
Well, I mean, it was so much so that Tom Savini was like, yeah, no, this doesn't make sense. So he didn't do the sequel and went and ended up doing The Burning. And then there's the whole thing with Muffin the dog. I mean, you see a dog's carcass in the woods that very much looks like the type of dog that Muffin is. I don't think there are a lot of dogs like Muffin the dog that are roaming around those woods. And then Muffin survives, which is great, but what? And then there's the whole thing with Paul. Paul, who's, you know, the protagonist, fighting off Jason, all that stuff. What happened to him in the end? We don't know. One of the things about this film is there's actually 2 Jasons. Warren Gillette played Jason for, I guess, a very small part of the film because he didn't know how to do stunts. And then Steve Dash did, I guess, 90% of the film, but then wasn't credited in 2. But then in the other films, he was credited as Jason. So that's something that's different. But I honestly think 2 is one of the better films of the series. 1, you've got the backstory with the campfire tale, you know, to keep everyone at camp, telling the story of Jason, how he's like wandering the woods, all that stuff, which again, since he was supposed to die, it doesn't make sense. But then they kind of blame it in the fact like, oh, that's just a legend, all that stuff, which why would it be a legend? Because it was such a surprise when everything happened with Mrs. Voorhees and all that stuff, that she's the one killing her because Jason died. So, I mean, I know they're trying to cover their ass and all that, but damn it, the main thing about 2 is that Jenny is a badass. She's amazing. She's absolutely incredible. She's brainy. She gets the guy. She hopefully, well, we know she didn't actually get Jason, but I don't know, for 40 years watching it again, it stands up. It really does. And, but yeah, I would just love to know some of those questions, like what happened to Paul? Paul just disappeared.
I always wonder about the guy they leave at the bar. Is that in part 2? They leave that guy at the bar? Yep. Yeah. So they leave that guy at the bar. He lives. And you're like, you know, whatever, like, I want somebody to write that story. Make a short film with like him talking about like, you know, like his reaction to finding out all his friends are freaking just wiped out by this maniac mongoloid serial killer, you know? I would love that story, like the survivor, you know, even though he's not quite a survivor like the way Jenny is. But the Blu-ray, by the way, which came out in this amazing box set last year. So Scream Factory last year made a huge announcement in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic that they were putting out a 16-disc Friday the 13th box set containing most of the bonus material from the previous sets and brand new bonus material. Almost every film in this box set, by the way, has no fewer than 3 commentaries.
Nice.
And a lot of new interviews, a lot of carried over old interviews from the old previous like box sets and releases and stuff like that. There's like 1 or 2 things here or there that a great website broke down saying what's still missing from it, but it's not the end of the world. You definitely had your problems with some of the discs, part 3 being one of them, that I guess the 3D didn't quite transfer like the way they thought it was going to. But there's a podcast interview with the actress Amy Steele, right? That's her name? Okay, Amy Steele during the film, which is a lot of fun to listen to because it's brand new. So it's like her like a year or 2 ago, at least definitely a lot. I'd say almost 90% of the material they definitely got done before the lockdown. If you watch any current Scream Factory releases coming out like right now in 2021 or late 2020, they mention constantly the COVID pandemic, or the interviews are being done over Zoom. Unfortunately, like Event Horizon, all the interviews were done over Zoom, which is unfortunate. But hey, at least they got to interview these actors from a movie that they wouldn't have gotten before. I highly recommend picking it up. It's fantastic. I've met both actors who played Jason, and I swear to God, I have never seen them sitting together. Reason why is they are not great together, but I'm just going based on what I have observed. Like, one person will say that he's really Jason, the other person will say he's really Jason, and it's like, guys, you're how old? Grow up and stop it. The movie is written by Victor Miller as well, and there's a huge problem with getting more Jason films out there because of the battle between him and Sean Cunningham. I have to say, in the Friday the 13th video game, which the plug has been pulled on, unfortunately, they are no longer able to play it online unless you play it with local friends. So you have friends that you want to play with, that's fine. You can't play with, let's say, somebody you've never met before. The Jason 2... Jason from Part 2 was probably the one of 2 most popular characters, and they were all played by Kane Hodder in motion caption suit. But he had like the most amount of like strength and the most traps, so you can set traps up everywhere to capture people and then hack them to pieces. But a lot of people love Part 2 because of the fact he's not in the hockey mask and he's not the super duper zombie yet.
Well, and one of the things I think is interesting about 2 is you go from 2 to 3, and 2, I mean, Jason is a sizable guy. I'm talking about the films, not necessarily, not the game. But I mean, Jason isn't a small guy and whatnot. But then you go to 3, and Jason is pretty freaking beefy in the 3rd film. And the thing is like 2 and 3 aren't supposed to be that far apart. I thought 2, 3, and 4 are like within like days and hours of each other because it's all the same time because everyone's looking at the news and whatnot.
Yes, it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting that he goes from somewhat smaller in 2 to then freaking beefy hunk like Beefazoid in 3, and very muscular and taller, I feel like, in 4. But we need to, a condolence to Steve Dash, who played Jason in 2, because he passed away in 2018, 19, I think 18.
Right, and so did Part 3's Jason, and the Jason from Part 4, who I couldn't believe, Sean...
Ted White?
Yes, Ted White's passed away, and the Jason from Part 4, who just turned 90... apparently is on very, very bad failing health, and he was announced to not be returning to the convention scene.
Ted White is the actor from 4.
Okay, so whoever Part 3 was, he also passed away. There's a documentary about him that you can watch for free on YouTube.
The number of Jasons are not... I mean, Kane, I know, is doing stuff all the time, and that's great.
Right.
And he's an amazing guy. I'm looking forward to seeing him again. But yeah, I agree. I would like to see what happened to Ted and the 5 other counselors that stayed in town, because when you watch 2, there's a whole truck full of kids in the back of a truck that go to town along with that little red VW, and then the only people that come back are Jenny and Paul. So there's like 6 or 7 people that stayed in town to party. And again, that's the thing with 2, there's like 14 counselors, again, very diverse, not very diverse, but more diverse than any of the other ones had.
Right, the
and
guy, like
they end up living. So it would be nice to see what happened. Get those interviews.
yeah, like I think it's the only movie out of the Friday the 13th films that we have a handicapped person in. Unless I'm missing someone, you can point it out to me. The kid in the wheelchair, who is also in real life a homosexual who unfortunately died of complications with the AIDS virus.
I know he did pass away, yeah, in the early 90s. And the actress who played his love interest in the film, remember seeing an interview with her. She said that she tried to seduce him and stuff, and he put the brakes on that. It's like, hey, I'm going to let you know right now, barking up the wrong tree. The tree I like doesn't look like you. And she's like, oh, okay. I get it. That's fine. But yeah, it's one. I've met Amy Steele. She's amazing during conventions. I've met Adrienne King again. She is also incredible during conventions. I highly recommend going to conventions and different festivals to talk to them about the films because they are, again, two of the best final girls, and or how I call them, survivors, because I mean they freaking fought. Like those two especially. Like, I mean, Adrienne King cut off a chick's head with a machete, and then Steele, like, she used her brain and did some psychology work and freaking psyched the killer out with 1 and 2. And this is the 41st anniversary of Friday the 13th, the original. 2, I love you. I love 1. I love the series, and I'm hoping they do more.
Check out the rest of the videos here on the Radio Heart YouTube channel. Check out Friday the 13th Part 2, wherever you can happen to find it. And tune in, coming up for another exciting review from Cati, the Blonde in Front of Fear.